Welcome to a deep dive into one of the unsung heroes of the gaming world, Gradius. Not just another blip on the arcade radar, this game fired its way into the 1980s like a well-aimed volley into the shoot-'em-up battle that was heating up in the gaming industry. Before we could yell power up, games were forever changed, and Gradius was leading the charge. Launched by Konami in 1985, this side-scrolling shooter didn't just have players dodging bullets. They were navigating a battlefield that was as strategic as it was fast-paced. Gradius wasn't just about reflexes. It was about quick thinking and even quicker actions. A sort of chess at the speed of light, with enemies coming at you faster than a caffeine rush at an all-night LAN party. It introduced a complexity that asked a bit more of its players, a trait that would endear it to many and carve its place in the history of video games. This game didn't just emerge out of the ether though. The landscape of the mid-80s arcade scene was fertile ground for innovation, and Gradius was a perfect storm of creative thinking and technological advancement, setting standards and expectations for what video games could be. So buckle up, hit start, and let's explore how Gradius made its mark, weaving through enemy lines and into the hearts of gamers around the globe. The story of Gradius begins with its creator, Konami, a company that, by the early 1980s, had already cut its teeth in the arcade game industry with hits like Frogger and Scramble. The latter laid the groundwork for what would become the hallmark of Gradius. Yet it wasn't just about continuing what it started, it was about revolutionizing it. Gradius was birthed from the idea of transforming the traditional shoot-'em-up genre into something more. This transformation was led by Hiroyasu Makaguchi and his development team, who set out to create a game that allowed players to customize their gameplay experience through an innovative power-up system. This system, a strategic selection method allowing players to enhance their spacecraft's speed, firepower, and defensive capabilities, was the first of its kind. Such innovation required the integration of new programming techniques and a departure from the standard game development. What set Gradius apart was not just its gameplay mechanics, but also the context in which it was created. The mid-1980s were a time of significant technological change, and Gradius leveraged by incorporating a horizontal scrolling feature that was smoother and more engaging than many of its predecessors. This feature wasn't just technical, it changed how players experienced the game, making the vast, space-themed environments feel more expansive and immersive. The core gameplay of Gradius is straightforward yet fiendishly complex, hinging on the player's ability to maneuver a spacecraft, the Vic Viper, through layers of enemy fire and strategically diverse landscapes. One of the most significant innovations was its power-up system, known as the Power Meter. This wasn't your garden variety pick up and play boost, it required strategy. Players collected power capsules from downed enemies, which incrementally filled up a meter at the bottom of the screen. The twist? Players could choose when to activate the power-up, whether to enhance their speed, upgrade weapons, or deploy additional defensive options like the option drones and force field. This system introduced a tactical depth unseen in previous shooters, where the timing of power-ups could mean the difference between victory and a swift demise. The level design of Gradius further complemented its power-up system. Each stage presented unique environmental challenges, from volcanic eruptions and dense asteroid fields to enemy fortress lines with cannons. These weren't just obstacles, they were an integral part of the game's narrative rhythm, with each level building up to a climactic boss battle that tested all the skills and upgrades players had accumulated. Enemy placement and behavior in Gradius were meticulously crafted to challenge the player's spatial awareness and reflexes. The game's AI was programmed to adapt to players' actions, making each encounter unpredictable and requiring players to continually adjust their strategies. This dynamic difficulty was part of what made Gradius both thrilling and frustrating, a dance on the razor's edge where any lapse in concentration could lead to a quick death. The difficulty curve in Gradius is legendary, often cited as one of the most challenging games of its time. This was intentional, designed to keep players coming back to master the game's nuances. The game's challenge was not just in enemy obstacles, but in mastering the game's mechanics themselves, which required precision and forethought. In Gradius, the synergy between visual and auditory elements wasn't just complementary, it was foundational to the game's immersive experience. The art of Gradius broke away from the simplistic backgrounds and character designs that typified many of the early 90s arcade games, offering instead a rich tapestry of alien landscapes and intricate enemy designs that brought its universe to life. This visual style of Gradius drew heavily from science fiction aesthetics, featuring outworldly environments that ranged from fiery infernos to biologically bizarre terrains teeming with organic enemies. Each level introduced not only new challenges, but also new visual themes, maintaining a freshness and a sense of progression that kept players engaged. The artist behind Gradius used the limited palette of the arcade systems of the time to create vivid, memorable scenes. The game's use of parallax scrolling, a technique where background layers move at different speeds, added a depth to the visuals that was both technologically impressive and artistically enveloping. The soundtrack of Gradius, composed by Miki Higashino, played an equally vital role in defining the game's atmosphere. Higashino's compositions were pioneering, blending synthesized sounds to create a score that perfectly matched the game's high stakes and adrenaline-pumping gameplay. Tracks like Challenger 1985 not only heightened the tension of the gameplay, but also encapsulated the era's enthusiasm for space exploration and adventure. The music was not just a background, it was a driving force that propelled the narrative and gameplay forward, enhancing the emotional and psychological impact of the game. But Gradius didn't just make waves in the arcade, it created ripples that influenced the broader culture of gaming and beyond. As one of the pioneers in the shoot-'em-up genre, its impact is far-reaching, affecting how games are designed, played, and integrated into pop culture. The introduction of the Konami Code, a sequence of button presses that provided additional lives or power-ups, became one of the most iconic cheats in gaming history. Originally intended as a development tool to help testers navigate the game's challenging levels, it became a cultural phenomenon. This simple code transcended Gradius and was incorporated into other Konami games, embedding itself into the DNA of gaming culture. It's been referenced in movies, TV shows, and even non-gaming related software, symbolizing a kind of insider knowledge or hack that delivers unexpected benefits. The legacy of Gradius didn't end with the final boss of the original game. It was just the beginning. Konami knew they had struck gold with this title, leading to a series of sequels and spin-offs that expanded the universe of Gradius and continued to innovate within the shoot-'em-up genre. The sequels, starting with Gradius 2, released in 1988, brought more of what fans loved and then some. The developers introduced new weapon systems, varied the power-up options, and incorporated more complex level designs that pushed the boundaries of what could be expected from arcade shooters. Each sequel seemed to respond to the evolving tastes and technological advancements of the gaming community, introducing richer graphics and more sophisticated soundtracks that leveraged the latest hardware capabilities. Gradius 3, arriving in 1989, is often remembered for its punishing difficulty, a trait that both frustrated and appealed to hardcore gamers. It included a customizable weapon loadout, allowing players to tailor their spacecraft's armaments to their playstyle. This installment tested the limits of player skill and patience, cementing the series' reputation for challenging gameplay. Spin-offs like Salamander, also known as Life Force in the West, experimented with gameplay mechanics by introducing simultaneous two-player action, a divergence from the solo missions of traditional Gradius games. This not only altered the gameplay dynamics, but also broadened the game's appeal to include those looking for a cooperative challenge. Parodius, another significant spin-off, took a different route by infusing the gameplay of Gradius with surreal, whimsical elements and an overt sense of humor. This series not only celebrated the mechanics of its predecessor, but also satirized them, providing a fresh experience without straying too far from what made Gradius successful. So, upon its release in 1985, it quickly became a favorite among players. Drawn in by its challenging gameplay and innovative features, its critical reception was overwhelmingly positive, with reviewers praising its strategic depth, advanced graphics, and the revolutionary power-up system that set new standards for the shoot-'em-up genre. Commercially, Gradius achieved significant success. It was not only a hit in the Japanese arcades, where it originated, but it also gained considerable popularity overseas, particularly in North America and Europe. This widespread acclaim helped to solidify Konami's reputation as a leading developer of arcade games and opened the door for numerous sequels and spin-offs, each contributing to the growing franchise. The game's sales figures were impressive, reflecting its popularity. While exact numbers from the 1980s are hard to come by, Gradius consistently ranked among the top games in arcade revenues during its peak years. Its success extended beyond the arcade cabinets, as Gradius also made a successful transition to home consoles, including the Nintendo Entertainment System. This move further expanded its audience and contributed to its status as a classic, allowing players to enjoy the arcade experience in their living rooms. Critics and players alike noted Gradius for its difficulty, which was both the point of acclaim and frustration. This challenging aspect of the game was seen as a benchmark for player skill, often being cited in gaming communities and competitive gaming circles. The difficulty not only enhanced its replay value, but also fostered a dedicated community of gamers eager to master its intricacies and share their strategies. As we wrap up our journey through the pixelated universe of Gradius, it's clear that this game was more than just a series of levels to conquer or enemies to defeat. It was a pioneering force in the video game industry, a catalyst for innovation that influenced countless developers and titles in the years that followed. From its revolutionary power-up system to its challenging gameplay, Gradius set a new standard for what video games could be: engaging, challenging, and visually captivating. In the end, the story of Gradius is more than just a lone spaceship battling against the odds. It's about how a single game can touch the lives of millions, influence an industry, and inspire a lasting cultural legacy. As we continue to explore the ever-expanding universe of video games, the echoes of Gradius reminds us that innovation, challenge, and creativity are the stars that guide us in the quest for the next great gaming adventure. If you enjoyed exploring the history and making of Gradius, click this video here to see more from the Retro Reload. And as always, thank you for watching.